Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart, the most listened to internet radio show in the nonprofit sector, dedicated to helping your charity succeed. It's no secret that combining online and offline techniques is the key to modern-day fundraising success, and practical advice is what you need. The Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart is the perfect landing point to learn from experts around the world who provide advice you can use. Ted Hart is without a doubt one of the foremost nonprofit thought leaders, also a successful author. His books range from successful online fundraising to the use of social media and how to make your nonprofit green. Guests on the Nonprofit Coach are leaders in their field who share tips and trade secrets for nonprofit management and fundraising success. Ted lectures around the world, but now he's here for you. From the latest in charity news, technology, fundraising, and social networking, Ted and his guests help you and your organization move to greater levels of efficiency and fundraising success. This is a live call-in show. Add your voice by calling 347-324-3080. After the show, you can find all our podcasts at tedhart.com. Click on Radio. Don't forget to dial 347-324-3080. Now, welcome the host of the Nonprofit Coach, Ted Hart.
And welcome here to the latest edition of the Nonprofit Coach. Thank you so much for joining us today here in the United States. This is tax day, so I hope that you've all gotten that out of the way and can enjoy your lunchtime with us here on the East Coast. I am coming to you live from the international headquarters of the Charities Aid Foundation of America, an international intermediary helping individuals, corporations, and foundations with their international grant making. We've got a very big show for you today. As the announcer said, you can call in when we get to our page 2 expert, and that number is 347-324-3080. You can also join us over in the chat room. You can ask questions there. I see a few folks over in the chat room. Feel free to ask your questions there, or if you prefer, you can email me at tedhart@tedhart.com. As always, here on the Nonprofit Coach, we start with page 1 news. You can follow along at tedhart.com. Click on radio links. You'll not only find all the radio links from today, but the very best links in the nonprofit sector and all the archives of our prior shows. First up here on the Nonprofit Coach comes to us from Mobile Cause. Mobile Cause has a terrific new ebook available for you. It's called Mobile Fundraising Communication Case Studies. In this ebook, you will be able to read about fundraising communication case studies for events, peer-to-peer activities, messaging, radio, and $10 donations. In each of those sections, they're going to give you very specific details on how you can use mobile technology to enhance both fundraising and your communication for your nonprofit organization, depending on the kinds of activities that you are engaged in. Find that link over in the radio links today at tedhart.com. Next up here on the Nonprofit Coach comes to us actually over from USA Today, where they've got a very nice short little video and article on some changes at Twitter. Twitter users might have noticed a new look for their profiles if they're viewing from a web browser, the microblogging service that is rolling out a new redesign, and it does look remarkably much more like Facebook. Content is aligned underneath 3 columns. So check that out. The link is over at the radio links today at tedhart.com and learn how you can do a better job with Twitter. Of course, Twitter being one of the 6 pillars of success for online nonprofit organizations that we talk about so often here on the Nonprofit Coach. And, of course, those of you who are familiar with the 6 pillars of success for online nonprofit organizations, you know that number 2, the most important thing that you can do online, be right behind a well-designed website and mobile technology platform for your organization, is GuideStar. And once a month, we have Lindsay Nichols here with us from GuideStar to bring us up to date on what's happening over at GuideStar. And today, Lindsay, again, welcome here to the Nonprofit Coach.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
And today we've received several questions, and so we wanted to ask you, and I know you've got several things you're going to cover today, but we wanted to ask you if you might start off with some content over at GuideStar, and we've provided a link in the radio links today on charting impact resources. What are they, and how might nonprofits use them?
Absolutely. So charting impact is a part of the GuideStar Exchange, which you just mentioned, and we love that you always make that one of your tips. Thank you, Ted. But essentially, the GuideStar Exchange is a free program where nonprofits can come to GuideStar, give us more information, and help tell their story. And as we were building this program, we realized there was a lot of impact information that was missing. And there are so many different nonprofits. It's hard for us all to talk about our outcomes, in the same kind of way. So that's what Charting Impact is. We partnered with BBB, Wise Giving Alliance, and Independent Sector to create 5 questions. And the answers to those questions are bundled into a report called the Charting Impact Report. And it really helps nonprofits think through what their outcomes are, what their impact is, how to really measure it, and to talk about it. And there's, tons of guidance, which I know you have in your radio links, super helpful resources that can help people think about the different questions, what they should think about as they're answering them, and the process for getting that approved within their own organization. There's a lot of things to think about. If you have a strategic plan, that's your first step for building out the answers to this. But there's a lot of other things to think about. How you engage your board, how you engage your leadership, etc. So thanks for including those resources. It's an important thing for nonprofits.
And we do have a direct link to Charting Impact resources today in the radio links at tedhart.com. Click on radio links. But I know that there's other exciting things that are happening at GuideStar, so what else do you have for us today?
Absolutely. Well, and while we're on the exchange, I'll actually mention that we've actually just partnered with BoardSource to give nonprofits an opportunity to share information about their board leadership practices. So again, the GuideStar Exchange is free. You can go in and fill out as much or as little as you want, but now there's a new section, and it really asks questions about board orientation and education, ethics, CEO oversight, things like that, things that are really important to nonprofits, and now there's a space to tell your story about that. So I wanted to mention that at guidestar.org/exchange is where you can get all that information. So it's an exciting new piece for us.
Absolutely. Very exciting.
And 2 other things really quickly. I'm going to be speaking at a conference called Weekend in Boca. It's a free conference for nonprofits. It's on May 2nd and 3rd in Boca Raton, Florida. And the whole focus is really to help nonprofits tell their stories better, through performance, impact, and inspiring stories. So I encourage people to register if they're in the area. It's OfficeDepotFoundation.org/Weekend in Boca. And if you are going to go, I'd love to see you. I'll be live tweeting from there if not. And so if you follow GuideStar's Twitter, we'll definitely be talking about it. And then very last, we are having our next Impact Call on May 12th. If you go to npo.gs/impact page, you can register. And that's really our opportunity to tell the world about GuideStar's, our own first quarter results, our financial, programmatic, and kind of product and program results. So it's an exciting new development for us to be able to tell results quickly, and I'm hoping that your audience can attend.
That's great. And you actually started that series last quarter, is that right?
That's right. So our very first one was in February. That we focused on the year end, and we were really proud to do that, within 60 days of the year end. And this one will focus on the first quarter. And we are going to have, 4 this year, so we'll have 2 more. And our goal is really to evolve the definition of transparency. So it's not just waiting for the 990 to come online, but to really give meaningful results in a timely manner and to be inclusive. So anyone can attend, it's free, and it's an opportunity to ask us tough questions. And we got tough questions last time, and we did answer them. So we were really excited about how it went, and we can't wait for the next one.
Well, I love the way that GuideStar continuously looks for ways to walk the talk. And I think that's really exciting to see that as a new model that GuideStar is using. Lindsay, we can't thank you enough and the folks at GuideStar for always bringing us very important updates each month. We look forward to chatting with you again next month here on the Nonprofit Coach.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Take care. That's Lindsay Nichols from GuideStar. We're back here on Page One News. Back here on Page One News comes to us from Digital Information World, and what they're providing to you is how to succeed, how to create the perfect social media posts. And they're outlining for you if you are posting on blog, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, does anybody use Google+, LinkedIn, and Tumblr. So they're literally giving you screenshots on where you should be putting your information, how you can optimize your social media posts, and they also, when you scroll all the way down to the bottom, of course, the link is available over in the radio links today at tedhart.com. They also give you the best time for posting in each of these services and the worst time to be posting in these services. So, for instance, if you're posting over on LinkedIn, LinkedIn being the third most important in the 6 pillars of success for nonprofit organizations, they suggest the optimum time for posting on LinkedIn is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., and the worst time for you to be posting on LinkedIn is 10 p.m. To 6 a.m. So read all about this. Very clever, laid out, infographic style, very easy to follow, and that's available over in the radio links today at tedhart.com. You'll also find over in the radio links today a new partnership, and we're welcoming Charity Channel Press as a partner here on the Nonprofit Coach. They have their terrific new series of books called the In the Trenches series, where just like with the Nonprofit Coach, they are bringing you the very best in thought leaders, making information accessible to nonprofit organizations on a whole host of topics available. And so you'll find that link over in the radio links today, where you can find all the books and learn more about Charity Channel Press. That's at tedhart.com today. And with that, it is time for us to welcome our Page 2 expert. Brian Saber joins me here as our Page 2 expert. He is a fundraising consultant, trainer, presenter, and author, and is also serving as president of Asking Matters, which is an online membership-based company that teaches staff and volunteers how to ask for money and motivates them to get out the ask. Asking Matters grows out of his experience raising hundreds of millions of dollars over 25 years by personally soliciting thousands of donors and coming to understand the art of the ask in a way that few people do. Because of his remarkable experience in asking, Brian has been able to break down the process of asking to fundamental components, making simple what seems to be very daunting for many. Brian has worked across the nonprofit sector, raising money for his alma mater, Brandeis University, Northwestern University, and a whole host of other organizations. And I welcome him here today as my guest on the Nonprofit Coach, Brian Saber.
Hi, Ted. How are you?
Brian, it's great to have you with us today. And, of course, you've got a very intriguing topic for us today. And before we get into all the details of why shy people can be great fundraisers, let's start off, if you would, by let's take a step back to what is Asking Matters. And many of my listeners may remember that we had Andrea Kilstead here on the show. She did a fantastic job talking about all 4 different types of asking styles. And I know you're going to be focusing on one of those today, but bring us up to date on what is the concept here and sort of the landscape, and then lead us into the specific topic that you have for us today.
Sure. Well, Andrea and I had worked together over a number of years when I was a fundraiser for a settlement house in New York, Hudson Guild, and she was a capital campaign consultant for us. And we, in the late 2000s, decided we wanted to do something together to help the field. And Andrea had this idea percolating of the fact that there are different ways to ask. There is not one way. And a lot of what we're taught is this is how you do it. There's one pattern, there's one trajectory. So we took our idea of asking styles and we developed it into this company, Asking Matters. So we've got this assessment, 30 questions that give you a primary and a secondary asking style based on how you think and how you interact with others.
Now, let me just jump in there for a second, Brian. Just to let folks know that we do have a link to Asking Matters over at tedhart.com in the radio links. And when they get to that page, I believe you're directing us to find your asking style. So once we get there, what's going to happen?
Once you get there, you will click through 30 questions. They're all true, false. It takes about 3 minutes. When you complete the assessment, online you will get a result that gives you a primary and a secondary style and tells you a little bit about what it means to be that style, the primary style in particular, and how to fundraise in it.
Now, are the styles are Rainmaker, Go-Getter, Mission Controller, Kindred Spirit, and then are the secondaries Analytic, Extrovert, Intuitive, Introvert, or do I have those backwards?
The primary style would be one of the four that you first mentioned, and then the secondary would be another. And what the secondary shows you is whether your level of extroversion, introversion, or your level of analytic versus intuitive thinking predominates.
Okay, so you're along that axis somewhere.
That's right. So two of the styles are more extroverted, the Rainmaker and Go-Getter styles, and the two of them we're talking about today are Kindred Spirit and Mission Controller. Those are the more introverted styles. And the Kindred Spirit, and I'm a classic Kindred Spirit, also in many cases is a shy person, not only introverted but shy. So those are two different but related personality traits.
What I find fascinating about the discussion that we're going to have today is, and please sort of follow my logic here, because as Americans, or maybe it's just as a New Yorker, we're always sort of taught that it's better to be a go-getter, it's better to be a rainmaker, it's better to be of those kind of very outgoing personalities, because I think that's sort of the way Americans typically see themselves. But there are other styles that can be very successful that don't necessarily get that kind of notoriety or pushing them forward, because their very nature is not to be pushed forward. So I think to give them their due today, to give people like you who are kindred spirits who see the value in that, and to help those of us who might be more on the Rainmaker Go-Getter side to be able to see that there's a balance. And I'm very curious from your perspective to both learn about the introverted styles, but also how do they work together with other people who may not be introverted in the asking process.
Great. Well, I'm sure you're aware of Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which has really made a splash in the field. It's about the power of the introvert and how we're living in a society that really values extroversion more than it has in a number of generations. And the question is, where is the introvert there? And the fact that introverts do have great power in a world of extroverts, but to your point a minute ago, we don't necessarily notice it.
Because of the very nature of who they are.
That's right.
So walk us through these two styles, Mission Controller and Kindred Spirit. Define those, and why are they distinctly different?
Sure. Well, the primary difference between a Mission Controller and a Kindred Spirit is in the thought process. The Mission Controller is analytic, and the Kindred Spirit is intuitive. They're both introverts. So the mission controller is all about facts, systems, plans, being methodical, and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Because analytics take data, and from data come up with an idea. Right. That's the definition of an analytic. Someone who looks at all the facts and then figures out the answer. The kindred spirit is an intuitive, and intuitives have an idea, they have a gut, and then they see if the facts support those ideas. Right? They are more emotional. They are more feelings-oriented, conflict-averse, because they're feelings-oriented. They're sensitive, and as I say, they go with their gut. So the primary difference is how they go through this thought process. Because kindred spirits, as intuitives, go with their gut and are much more in touch with their feelings in interacting with people, that creates a second level of challenge for them in fundraising. So the mission controller often, his or her primary challenge is that without all the facts, the mission controller doesn't always want to act. And
because people can get bogged down in data, right? Or oftentimes data can be, or the lack of data or perceived lack of data can be a crutch to not take action.
That's right. I often hear mission controllers say, I don't have enough information. They may not have enough information about the prospect. They may feel they're not conversant enough about the organization. In particular, when we're talking about volunteers, board members or others, they may be very uncomfortable with the fact that they don't know exactly how much to ask for. Right. This is not a science. It's not even an art, how much to ask for. And sometimes it can be a bit random until you get to know your donor. And that is challenging for a mission controller who likes to have it all lined up. We often say, though, that mission controllers are wonderful in certain circumstances, in particular with institutional donors. We often are talking about individuals because more than 80% of all gifts come from individuals. And people seem to have the hardest time asking individuals. But mission controllers are wonderful with corporations, foundations, government funders, not only in the proposal piece, which makes sense because they're great at reading the guidelines, following the guidelines, being very methodical about the entire application process.
Right, mission controller is never going to miss an appendix.
Correct.
But they're going to make sure that they follow the rules.
Funders. Right. Even when they meet with institutional funders, it's better because mission controllers love a script. And the institutional funders are more likely to follow a script. When you meet with an individual, you don't really know in which direction that conversation is going to go. It can go many directions. But the meetings with institutional funders tend to be more direct. You've got an application. The funder has a set of guidelines. They have certain questions they're going to ask. And it ends up being a more comfortable environment for a mission controller for that reason. That doesn't mean mission controllers can always get away without asking individuals, especially if you are a director of development for a nonprofit. And that's where you have to know your style and work with your strengths and address your challenges. But often we're talking about board members and how to engage board members. And I often say, well, send board members out on your institutional ask if they're mission controllers.
Right. But we've got these two introverted styles, but certainly they have their strengths versus individuals versus institutional givers. But does inherent shyness get in the way of those benefits?
There are a number of different nuances here. One of the we have this issue of the fact that introverts think to talk and extroverts tend to talk to think. Right? So introverts generally are a little reticent around groups, don't like parties as much. For the kindred spirit, this is elevated because there's this issue of conflict averse, not knowing what to say, fear of rejection. That gets me counted in a group. So where a shy person can shine often is in the one-on-one. It might seem paradoxical, but actually that is the perfect place for a shy person. It tends to be less challenging than being in a group. So shy fundraisers actually are better suited to one-on-one fundraising than they are to some of the other forms of fundraising, especially special events. So I know you're getting at this question of an extremely shy person. There's a whole spectrum here, and that's something to keep in mind.
So minor amounts of shyness aren't necessarily going to get in the way.
Right, or a medium amount, I would say. I would say I have a medium amount of shyness.
Okay.
And I might have a bit of discomfort in that situation, but I can get past it by doing a number of things. And this is part of what we stress at Asking Matter. So here's a perfect example. I always have found it difficult to meet people. That first moment. It's one of the things that keeps me from going to parties. But even in a situation where I've been the executive director of an organization, and I'm going to see possibly a current donor whom I just hadn't met yet. So someone who's already shown interest in the organization, that first introduction is difficult for me. It always has been. So, one, I've learned to write out some questions to ask at the top and during the meeting, and I try to have those on my lap, so I have something to refer to if I ever find I'm at a loss for words. Which
preparing the script yourself. Preparing the script yourself.
Right. So I do script myself in that way. Not like a mission controller in terms of all the facts and figures, but some conversational questions that I can ask along the way.
Okay.
Also, and we might talk about this more a bit later, I partner. I happen to think it's very powerful to go out on a solicitation with someone else.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there, Brian, because that's what I want to ask you to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to actually ask you to delve into how do they work, how do kindred spirits in particular, because that's where you're most familiar, how do you partner with others, how do you interact with others, both the pluses and the minuses, and sort of the pitfalls that you want to help my listeners today prepare for to make sure that they're establishing themselves for maximum success. And we'll be right back on the Nonprofit Coach with Brian Saber. Next week here on the Nonprofit Coach, Clint O'Brien will be back with us. He's moved over to Engaging Networks. He's going to be sharing with you some really good tips on telling your story and building creative campaigns. That's April 22nd, 12 noon Eastern. After that, we're going to be on our spring break here on the Nonprofit Coach, which is a terrific time to catch up on hundreds of Nonprofit Coach podcasts, all available at tedhart.com. And we've provided you in the radio links today a link to the top 10 shows of all time so that you can use that time to get caught up. we're going to now get a little bit of background information on a service from Google that can help you stay organized.
Life gets busy. Wouldn't it be nice to have a central place where you could save what's on your mind? With Google Keep, you can stay on top of your world by quickly and easily organizing everything you want to remember. No matter where you are.
Finalize door list for Thursday's gig.
So when you find inspiration, you can file away your ideas. And Google Keep stores them safely across all your devices. And when the time comes, you'll have everything covered. Save what's on your mind. Google Keep.
Remember, our podcasts and archives are always available 24 hours a day at tedhart.com. Click on Radio Link. If you're listening live today, the phone lines are open. Call in and ask a question by dialing 347-324-3080. Now, back to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart.
And this is Ted Hart. I'm live here with Brian Saber. Brian is with Asking Matters, and today our topic is how those who are shy or introverted can not only be successful in nonprofit fundraising and asking for gifts, but potentially are a strong asset for organizations who have these folks on their team. So, Brian, we're back, and before the break, I asked when you come back if you could help us sort of sort out all these different personality traits and how they work together. In particular, we're focused on the introverted folks who might be in your asking styles, be mission controllers or kindred spirits. They're going to come into interaction with those who are not introverted, and how do they successfully maneuver those waters? Sorry, Brian, it would be helpful if I turned your microphone on. That was my fault. Sorry about that, Brian. You're back.
Okay. So one point I'd like to make before talking about this concept of pairing, going out as pairs, is that the greatest strength introverts bring is their ability to listen. And listening is actually at the heart of fundraising. It's not sales. Interestingly, just on the plane this morning, I just came out to Chicago to do some solicitations, which we can talk about in a few minutes. I'm reading Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human. And he talks about the evolution of sale and what it really is. Because when people think sale, they think of this extroverted, social, garrulous person who sells you something. And when you think of the prototypical fundraiser, you think of that. You think of a rainmaker, according to our graph. Very few people are rainmakers, according to the asking styles. Most of the people who take our assessment don't fall in that quadrant. Most fundraisers are not. They're in there for a variety of reasons, but mostly because they have passion for a cause and want to help the world be better. So you don't have a lot of extroverts, and you definitely don't have a lot of rainmakers, but it doesn't matter because it's not about selling. It is about listening and learning who your donors are and what excites them about your organization, about the world, whatever. Your goal is to get to know them. So introverts have an extraordinary strength here because the challenge with extroverts sometimes is they do talk too much in a situation like this. They need to watch out to make sure they don't monopolize the conversation and that they give the donor room to sell himself or herself. So I want to make sure everyone gets that because that's one of the great paradoxes, if you will, in terms of how people think about sales and fundraising and what the reality really is.
Thinking in terms of the kindred spirits and the mission controllers that are out there listening today, they're looking at their counterparts who are the rainmakers and the go-getters and probably seeing a lot of those folks advancing their careers maybe faster than theirs because they get noticed. They make themselves get noticed. How do mission controllers and kindred spirits sell themselves and sell the benefits that you're sharing that may not be as obvious or on the sleeve for administrators and board members who are looking to hire?
Well, the proof is really in the pudding. No question, extroverts probably are better at selling themselves in interviews, maybe selling themselves to their bosses once they're hired in some way. But fundraising is about closing the deal. And over time, you either raise money or you don't, especially if you're in major gifts, let's say, or in some positions where you are asking specific prospects for gifts, right? There's no hiding behind that. You're either out there meeting with people, and those meetings are resulting in gifts over time, or you're not. Mm-hmm. Right? So I never had to tell anyone, I'm a great fundraiser, look at me, look at me. I was able to say, I closed X number of gifts. This gift was the largest gift for this reason. This was the capstone of a capital campaign. I reached my goals here and there. At the end of the day, it is about numbers.
Right.
So,
but there are terrific go-getters and rainmakers who also have good numbers, and I'm wondering if part of how kindred spirits and mission controllers, and again, in your asking styles, if part of this is being self-aware and understanding that you do have a different style and that you bring different skills to the table, and that's the first step in understanding how you tell your own story, because it might not be as obvious of a story as a rainmaker or a go-getter who's also raising money, because it's not that they can't raise money, they raise money in a different way, but they're raising money, but their story maybe jumps ahead of yours, or maybe because of who they are, they're drawing more attention to themselves. So part of the secret here, and I'm asking this question, is being self-aware and understanding that there are different styles, and that just because your style is different doesn't mean that it's potentially less valuable.
Absolutely. The asking styles have had a profound effect on my own life. I have now been fundraising for just about 30 years, if you include my time as a student phone-a-thonner in college. And until we developed Asking Matters and these asking styles, I never felt as good as I should have about my fundraising record.
It's almost empowering to understand, to almost sort of self-analyze yourself and to understand that there is value in all four of these, but understanding yourself is as important to the process as getting out there and asking for the money itself.
Absolutely. It's a parallel to our lives. One of our goals is to appreciate ourselves for who we are and not worry about what we're not. And this is very true in fundraising and has been huge for me personally.
So being able to label it, being able to say very proudly, I'm a kindred spirit on this scale. This is why the people that are like me are valuable, allows you to tell that story in a way that we might all naturally, because of the pre-interest in business, in go-getters and rainmakers, and those are the folks that just by saying that, you don't even have to describe how they're doing their fundraising, or certainly there's nuances that we could explore, and we did when Andrea was on the show. But for you do have to describe why kindred spirits or mission controllers are and potentially equally important.
Yes. And what makes this so important is not only the professional staff side, but every one of us in the business has a board of directors, and almost every one of us is struggling to get that board of directors to be more involved in fundraising. So it's critical that we find a way to make all of our board members feel valuable, feel that they have something to bring to the table, feel that they can do this. Because I know everyone listening today has board members who say, many board members who say, I can't fundraise. I hate fundraising. I'm not good at it. I can't do it. I've never done it. They come in with a bias against this very important work that you want them involved in. And the asking styles are a way to break down those barriers in a huge way. I've seen it in my training and coaching work with organizations. It finally gives everyone around the table a sense that they are at the table and that they can do this.
Well, and I want to explore that a little bit because I think that's fascinating in how these asking styles can also help nonprofit organizations understand their own boards of directors. Because I think, again, and maybe this is too broad of a generalization, so correct me if I'm wrong, but again, just as we're interviewing board members, we're probably gravitating towards people who we perceive to be rainmakers and go-getters because we've maybe been frustrated that board members have not been engaged. So we think, well, those folks will naturally gravitate towards being engaged. And do we lose out by not recognizing that there are other skills and styles that can be successful if we knew how to identify them and how to manage them?
Absolutely.
So how does all of this affect board members, either the ones that you have or potentially being more open-minded to the types of board members you might be looking for?
I'm hoping it's an aha moment for everyone in our field, especially for the rainmakers and the go-getters. When I was in a management position, being a kindred spirit, I think I had a certain sensitivity towards an appreciation of others who were quieter, because I saw in them qualities I had, and I didn't feel perhaps at times that I was being overwhelmed by these rainmakers and go-getters. I mean, sometimes it can be challenging for us. I actually think of our years together in business when Andrea and I ran Asking Matters together. Now I run it myself. But she was a true extroverted go-getter, very extroverted go-getter. And she taught to think, and I think she taught, and sometimes I'd almost be overwhelmed by her thought process and everything coming at me, and I'd say, I can't respond. You have to be time to think. And So I appreciate other introverts because our rhythm actually works well. Right? So I actually find myself gravitating often to other introverts. And I think others in management who are introverts probably do as well. So I guess my message is more for the rainmakers and go-getters on the call today, listening in today, to say, pay attention to us. Give us a minute to shine, to come through, and recognize that if we're not talking, we might be analyzing the situation, taking in the information, figuring out how to be strategic in our answer, and learning about you as you interview us.
You mentioned a moment ago that you're hoping that this was an aha moment for the industry, but I'm wondering, am I overplaying the topic too much to suggest that this sort of insight may be at the crux of a go-getter board with a kindred spirit exec being at odds or not understanding each other, or the go-getter exec who has mission controllers on the board and they don't seem to get along very well. Are these inherent problems?
They're only inherent problems in an organization that doesn't communicate well. We face this in our lives in every way, that we are involved with people who are different from ourselves. We report to people different from ourselves. We have people reporting to us who are different from us. We are in relationships with people who are different in many ways from us. And we have to figure out ways to communicate, respect each other, and get along. So I would hope that's happening on a board. I think the bigger issue on a board is communication in general. That can often be right.
How does that happen if inherently you're speaking different languages?
I think
is there a way to translate? It does make it harder. Is there a way to translate? Is there sort of a Rosetta Stone that helps these groups work well together?
Yeah. Well, my gut when you just asked that was that's where these objective reviews are so important. Lots of organizations bypass formal review processes either for their staff or for their board members. And I think that's a missed opportunity to clarify and make sure you're on the same page. And when that situation you're describing exists, the absence of this critical objective review only makes it worse. Yeah. So I think
clearly stated goals and an open review process is one of the ways that both styles treat each other fairly.
Mm-hmm. When I think of the board process, and I'm a real stickler for board process, so I believe that every year, ideally the chairman of the board, and maybe along with the executive director, someone has to sit down one-on-one with every board member to review his or her performance for the year, what was accomplished, what they brought to the table, etc., and then come up with goals for the next year. And it's in that meeting that you realize how impactful each of the board members been. So the board member who's not praising himself or herself at a board meeting, right? The one who's not saying, oh, I did this, oh, I got in touch with IBM and they're going to do whatever. You find out in the meeting what they did. You get to codify that, and you make a plan for the following year.
You might also, just as you were mentioning in your own example, you may also learn in that process that they have been feeling overwhelmed.
That's right. They also are less likely to articulate any challenges they have with the organization or concerns they have when they're around the board table, but they might do it in the one-on-one. So the one-on-one gives the introvert a better platform to air anything and everything. Right. Because, much to your point, as I'm thinking now, a board meeting itself is geared towards the extrovert.
Right.
I rarely make my opinion heard in a large group.
It's one of the reasons why, and very few do this because it seems overly cumbersome. But when I'm providing training to a board of directors, I encourage them to become more formal in the structure of their board meetings for several different purposes. One is oftentimes votes are never taken. And it's sort of, ruled by consensus, all in favor, and right. Someone who is more of an introvert, someone who's quieter, may not feel comfortable in that situation to be the lone voice of reason, perhaps, or of opposition. So they just kind of got steamrolled because they're not comfortable raising their hand. But also legally to never have a set of minutes that ever suggests that the board of directors ever made an actual decision can be a real problem. But even in discussions, and again, for most organizations, it just seems overly complex and overly bureaucratic. But when a discussion is undertaken, to try to be organized in having a discussion of someone who is for the motion, and then ask that the next person speaks in opposition if there is an opposition, so that you're almost giving permission to introverts to say, now's your opportunity without making a nuisance of yourself.
That's great. That's a wonderful point to make. Yeah,
but do we lose
your
these
board
people?
Members say afterwards, I didn't want to say anything.
Right.
I didn't want to say anything, right?
And so I'm asking,
I wish you had.
Right. Do we lose these people because in our desire either for consensus or our gravitation towards go-getters and rainmakers, do we lose people who have other skill sets and feel frustrated or overwhelmed in a process that's really not built for them.
Absolutely. I think this is group dynamics at its core. Yeah.
So how do we overcome that? Is more structure, as I outlined, is that just one of several tools? Is that one of the best tools? What have you come up with in terms of ways to make sure, even in a staff situation, if you have hired a bunch of go-getters, but you find that you have a kindred spirit, does that person just always get marginalized and sort of homogenized, or
by bad managers, perhaps?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of bad managers out there for sure. It's not easy managing people. I have to say that that's not my expertise. So I've worked in organizations my whole life. For me, it's really more about the ask, right? The shy introvert person. So I don't want to overstep my expertise here.
Right. So to the ask, is it also though the same principle? Is it organizing the ask as you sort of started off, our time together by saying kindred spirits are naturally inclined to be better with individuals, to be better in one-on-one situations rather than group situations. Is that just another example of organizing and structuring around best use of style?
Yes, that's a very good point. And one of the things I'm starting to explore in more depth now is how your asking style affects what type of organization you go to, what type of position you might take, right? What you do best, what you can do best for an organization.
Well,
so,
I can tell you,
absolutely.
even here at CAF America, as we've hired several people and really redesigned the entire staff here, and we do really think about equal candidates who may have different skill sets or similar skill sets. We do think in terms of would that person likely succeed with the dynamics that we have in this office, rather than bringing someone in to a situation where we might perceive that they would be uncomfortable.
Right, and I think to a certain extent that's helpful, but you can become a bit homogenous that way.
You can, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful not to overstate that. Well, we have about 5 minutes left here on the show, so what I wanted to ask you to do is sort of summarize the points, because you've brought up a topic here today that I don't think most people focus on, and sort of all the permutations of that in terms of management style, board of directors, asking for gifts. All of the central aspects seem to come back to we're not all the same. We bring a lot of different skill sets, and by recognizing that, organizations can get better by bringing multiple skill sets rather than pinning all their hopes on one or two different skill sets that may naturally get more attention but are not necessarily twice as good or three times as good or likely to be better without sort of that counterbalance. So summarize all that and then make sure that my listeners know how they can reach you.
Sure. Well, there's the management point of view, and then there's that actual asking point of view. And I think from the management point of view, we need to realize that the prototypical fundraiser can be a good fundraiser for sure, but is not the only type who can fundraise well. That everyone brings their own set of skills to the table. No one has every skill. If you're going to write a list of the top 20 skills, no one has them all. And we all need to play to our strengths, and we need to realize that everyone has those strengths. As an asker, we need to embrace that for sure, and we need to understand where our challenges are and how to compensate for those, how to play to our strengths and deal with our challenges. And that can mean how we partner with others, where we find ourselves working, what roles we take in an organization, and maybe what role we take in an ask itself. Right? And we didn't have time to talk about pairing today, but it's probably self-evident that if you pair with someone who's a little different from yourself, you can make a great pair.
As long as you plan for it, right? I mean, you don't want to throw somebody into a pairing without forethought.
Absolutely. And the styles give you a roadmap to figure out who you might pair best with and what you bring to the table. I'm actually headed out to a solicitation in an hour and a half with a go-getter. Now, it would be ideal maybe if it were a rainmaker, because neither one of us is the analytic, but I'm happy I'm going with the extrovert, and we partner often together, and we've got our roles down pat, and it's really delightful to solicit with him.
So that's a good example of pairing, to be conscious, but both parties have to be conscious of their own style and how they can complement each other.
Right. He knows he can go long, and I kick him under the table, and he knows that means it's time to move on. So how to contact me? The best is to go to the website, www.askingmatters.com, and the first thing everyone should do is take the Asking Styles assessment. It truly only takes 3 minutes.
We have a link in the radio links today at tedhart.com, so everybody who's over there for the page 1 links today can go ahead and click straight through to your website.
And as a matter of fact, for the first time ever next month, I am doing webinars on the individual styles. It's never been done before at Asking Matters. So I'm offering webinars to mission controllers, to go-getters, to kindred spirits, and go-getters, mission controllers, kindred spirits, and rainmakers. 2 of each. And so people may want to participate in those. And otherwise, you can surf the site, and there's lots of good material for everyone there.
And there'll be information about the webinars on your website?
Yes, absolutely.
Terrific. Well, Brian Saber, thank you so much for bringing such an important topic to us today. You serve as president of Asking Matters, and I'm absolutely thrilled to give my listeners today an opportunity to learn more about the asking styles, and in particular, beginning, hopefully, to appreciate the value of those who may be more introverted.
Well, thank you, Ted. Thanks for having me on the show today.
And everyone, don't forget to join us next week here on The Nonprofit Coach. We'll be back next Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern.
You've been listening to the Nonprofit Coach Radio Show with Ted Hart. Tell all your friends to check out our production schedule and download our iPod and iPad-friendly podcast at tedhart.com. Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Coach.
Hola mi gente, Rosalind Sanchez here from He Said, Ella Dijo. And although I like drama in my telenovelas, when it comes to real life, I prefer a drama-free casa. Thanks to Fabuloso. Its remarkable lavender scent lingers like a longing glance, and with 2 times more active ingredients to take the drama out of any mess, you'll be shouting, gracias. Fabuloso's 2 times concentrated formula provides 2 times more active cleaning ingredients versus non-concentrated Fabuloso Original. Use as directed.